The Forgotten Path. In a small, sleepy village nestled between two tall hills, there was an old, overgrown path no one dared to walk. It had been forgotten for years. The villagers told stories about strange disappearances, bad luck, and worse, whispers of people who had walked that path but never returned. No one knew for sure what lay beyond, but the village elders always warned, "Stay away from the old path. No one comes back the same." Tom, a 25-year-old carpenter, had grown up hearing these tales. But he wasn't one to believe in old legends. His father had passed down the family workshop, and Tom was focused on expanding the business. One evening, after a long day of repairing tools, he overheard some villagers at the local tavern talking about the path. "There's treasure up there, I bet," said one man, laughing. "Treasure? More like trouble," another scoffed. Tom chuckled to himself, but the idea stuck. Treasure? He thought it was ridiculous. But something inside him itched. What if it was more than just stories? What if there really was something out there that no one had discovered? The next morning, Tom woke early, packed some food, and told no one where he was going. With a hammer on his belt and determination in his heart, he made his way toward the old path. As he stepped onto the path, the air felt different, heavier, more silent. The trees were twisted, the leaves thick, blocking most of the sunlight. With each step, the village behind him disappeared until there was nothing but forest all around. The trail wasn't easy. Branches scratched at his arms, roots tripped his feet, and the overgrown shrubs made it hard to see where he was going. Hours passed, but Tom pushed forward, determined to find something, anything. After what felt like forever, Tom stumbled upon something unusual and old, weathered stone wall covered in moss. He hadn't expected to find anything like it. The wall seemed to stretch endlessly in both directions, and beyond it, something was hidden. A strange sound echoed from behind the wall. He froze, listening carefully. It was faint at first, like the wind whistling through the trees. But as he moved closer, the sound became clearer, a soft humming, rhythmic and continuous. Tom's heart raced. He scaled the wall and found himself standing in front of a small clearing, at the center of which was a well, an ancient, crumbling well. Beside it, there was a pile of stones, neatly stacked. Curiosity tugged at him. He approached the well and peered inside. It was deep, too deep to see the bottom. The humming sound was louder now, coming from within. But there was something else. At the edge of the well lay a small leather book, its pages weathered and yellowed. He opened it slowly, revealing page after page of sketches, maps, symbols, and strange markings he didn't understand. But on the last page, one word stood out: return. Tom felt a chill down his spine. Who had left the book here?
And why?
Suddenly, the ground beneath his feet began to tremble. The well groaned, its stones shifting and cracking. Without warning, a loud rumble erupted from beneath, and Tom stumbled backward, barely avoiding the collapse of the well's edge. He ran, his heart pounding, not stopping until he was far from the clearing. When he reached the wall again, he climbed over it in a rush, not looking back. As he stumbled back onto the overgrown path, Tom realized the sun had begun to set. Hours had passed, but it felt like mere minutes. Breathless and shaken, he hurried back to the village. When he returned, no one was waiting for him. The village looked the same as when he had left, but Tom felt different, like he had uncovered something that wasn't meant to be found. He couldn't shake the feeling that the well and the strange book were connected to something bigger, something hidden beneath the village's quiet surface. That night, Tom locked the book away in his workshop. He told himself he wouldn't think about it again. But deep down, he knew it wasn't over. In the following weeks, strange things started happening in the village. People began to report hearing strange hums at night, whispers carried by the wind. Others spoke of feeling watched, of shadows in the trees. Tom tried to convince himself it was all coincidence, but the humming in his dreams told him otherwise. He hadn't escaped the well. It had followed him. Days had passed since Tom's return from the overgrown path, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. The leather-bound book lay hidden in a drawer at his workshop, its presence a constant weight on his mind. The humming sound from the well haunted his dreams, growing louder with each passing night. One evening, while Tom was working late in his shop, there was a knock at the door. He opened it to find old Jeb, the village's blacksmith, standing there with a troubled look on his face. "Tom," Jeb began, his voice low, "I've heard some unsettling things. Folks have been seeing strange shadows in the woods. And that humming sound, it's back." Tom's heart raced. He had tried to convince himself it was all in his head, but hearing Jeb's words confirmed his fears. "I think it's time you told me what really happened when you went up that path," Jeb said, stepping inside. Tom hesitated. Should he tell the truth? The villagers had been frightened of the path for generations. What if revealing what he found only made things worse? Tom sighed and sat down, recounting everything: the path, the wall, the well, and the strange book. Jeb listened intently, his eyes narrowing as Tom mentioned the strange markings and the word "return" scrawled on the last page. "I've heard stories," Jeb said quietly, "about a well like that, long before you or I were born. It's said to be cursed, a gateway to something. I don't know what, but those who found it never came back the same." Tom felt a chill run down his spine. "What do we do?" he asked. Jeb was silent for a moment, then stood up. "We need answers. I know someone who might help." The next day, Jeb and Tom left the village and journeyed to a neighboring town where they met an elderly scholar named Elda. She had spent her life studying the forgotten histories of the land, and when they told her about the well, her face grew pale. "The Well of Shadows," Elda whispered. "It is not a legend. It's real. And if you've disturbed it, you've awakened something ancient, something that must be put to rest." Elda examined the book Tom had found, running her fingers over the strange symbols. "These markings are old," she murmured, "older than the village itself. The word 'returned' isn't a warning, it's a command. Something wants to return through the well, and if it does—" She didn't finish her sentence, but the look in her eyes told Tom everything he needed to know. The well wasn't just a place, it was a door, and whatever lay beyond it was trying to come back. Elda instructed Tom and Jeb to return to the village immediately. "There's still time to close the door," she said, "but you must act quickly." When Tom returned, the village was eerily quiet. The humming sound had grown louder, and several villagers had reported seeing strange figures lurking in the woods. Shadows that didn't belong to any living creature. Tom knew they didn't have much time. That night, he, Jeb, and a few trusted friends gathered at the old path, armed with tools and determination. Elda had given them instructions, a ritual to seal the well and prevent anything from crossing over. They worked through the night, their breath heavy in the cold air as they removed the rocks from the collapsed well. The humming grew louder as they neared the center, and Tom could feel a presence watching them, waiting for them to fail. Finally, they reached the well's edge. Tom held the book tightly in his hands, following Elda's instructions to read the incantation aloud. As his voice echoed into the well, the ground beneath them trembled and a cold wind whipped through the trees. The humming became deafening, but Tom didn't stop. He recited the final words, and suddenly, the well let out a loud crack, followed by silence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a loud groan, the earth shifted, and the stones began to fall back into place, sealing the well shut once and for all. Tom and the others collapsed to the ground, exhausted but relieved. The humming was gone, and the village was safe. For now. As the sun rose, Tom stood at the edge of the path, looking back at the well one last time. He knew that the village's peace had come at a price, but he also knew that something had been left unfinished. The well was closed, but the shadows were still out there, watching, waiting. And Tom couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. What lies ahead for Tom and the village? Will the shadows return? Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next chapter of The Forgotten Path.